Hello everyone, welcome back to the Aspergian Journal. Autism is your gift and your curse. That is a phrase you'll have most probably have heard of many times and often wonder, what does it truly mean and how does it impact an individual on the autistic spectrum? Well, that is what we're going to discuss and find out in this video. The emphasis between a gift and a curse is where individuals have many talents and abilities that brings benefits and enjoyment to their lives. But there is also many aspects of their autism that brings daily struggles and challenges to their lives. To a lot of autistic people, if you ask them about if they like being autistic or not, you'll mostly get the answer that autistic people would not change their autism for the world, and it is part of who they are as a unique individual. On the flip side to that, autistic people do have various challenges in life that makes their day-to-day living a bit of an upheaval rather than a systematic set of routines that supports them massively and builds on their unique strengths as well as working towards what their weaknesses are. What shapes a person's perceptions for their autism is the life experiences they have had to endure up to the present day and how they went about changing their limiting beliefs and circumstances to make their lives more fulfilling and less anxious driven. Also, how society treats autistic people only adds to their insecurities that they feel about their autism, mainly due to the lack of services that are available for them to get the support that they need, and also the large scale of misunderstandings, or shall I say the unwillingness to understand autism from non-autistic people, which then only adds more pressure onto autistic people as they go through the challenges that they have to endure and have to overcome. And then that only contributes towards their strong feelings of loneliness and other mental health problems to get worse over time. In essence, it just makes their circumstances and the adversities they have to face more of an upheaval and just makes it harder for them to feel accepted in society as they go on to create the life they want to lead and the goals they want to achieve. As an autistic person myself, I've had to overcome a wide variety of different adversities and challenges, and just to be able to live a life and feel accepted in society, even though I do not need society's permission to be able to live the life that I want. But when you're a child or a young adult and you haven't got the wisdom, the maturity, or the outlook of someone who is older and got more life experience, you don't know anything different. You only know about life up until that particular point in your life. Even though I'm in my 30s, even though I am quite wise and mature for my age, and I have developed as a person over time, but I still don't know everything about life. And you most probably will do. When we think about this love and hate relationship that individuals on the autistic spectrum have for their autism, it's really looking at aspects of their autism and that makes them the person they are, and the things that the most probably don't like about their autism, but it's just part of who they are, and they have to manage it better. Well, in essence, work with what you've got. When you're born as a baby, you can't choose what your DNA is. You can't choose what genes you are. You have to work with what you got. Some people might be blessed in that with having certain physical attributes, and others maybe not. Or in the other case, you might have someone in that that's really intelligent and quite brainy, and others in that might be more gifted in a physical sense, like using their hands. We're all different human beings, and autistic people are no different to non-autistic people. So why does society always think that we should be categorising autistic people as just under this one perception or one category of people, when we are just as unique and different as any other person in society? And it does frustrate me when you see time and time again autistic people are less favoured for things than that when they are more than capable of doing. A good example of this is when I've been for a job interview. I've got the skills, I've got the experience, and also I've got the willingness to learn something. And when I've been for an interview, like for an accounts assistant job, and when I initially trained as an accountant, all I was looking for was that next step up to further develop in my accountancy career. And the one thing I would always come up against is where the interviewers have an adverse perception for people that are autistic. I remember a time when I was asked a question of what can you bring that's unique to you and to this role, and I would answer it in a way where I was using my autism in a positive way to illustrate why I have certain skill sets or a certain outlook and that can bring a unique advantage to the role. And I expressed it in a really good way. I could just tell from looking at the interviewer's face, and that when I just mentioned the word autism, they just didn't want to know. They made their minds up, and that without even considering other aspects of what I was saying, and how how I was meeting the criteria. And it just felt like we were just there for pantomime, just to comply with legislation around recruitment and selection. I just felt like, it just felt like it was a waste of my time. If you're not even going to seriously consider my application and my interview for that job, if you're not going to consider me and you're just going to dismiss my application just on the basis of me being autistic, then you're just wasting everyone's time. Also, that can link to discrimination. Maybe not directly, saying it directly to my face, but just looking at or treating someone that less favourably for that role. Now, I'm not saying that autistic people have to be employed and that just because they're autistic. Obviously, you've got to have the skills and that to be able to do the job. But your autism should not be the deciding factor of when they're either going to select or not select someone for that role. And for me, and I don't know if other autistic people might have this as well, but I have this sixth sense of being able to notice from facial expression of when people aren't interested in what I've got to say, even from just mentioning the word autism in a positive way. And those are the kinds of challenges that autistic people have to endure. And it was those experiences, even at the start of my career as training to be an accountant, and even upon completing my apprenticeship and working in other roles, I just felt like I was at a disadvantage. And it just wasn't I fell out of love of the job and the career and the industry itself as a result of it. And those experiences really contributed towards me making the decision and to do this, really, to start the Aspergian Journal and really put my money where my mouth is in terms of advocating for autistic people in a creative way which encourages empowerment and inspiration. There are many attributes that autistic people do possess that can be seen as gifts, which are unique to each individual. And there is many of them and that are common and for those that are on the autistic spectrum, like unconventional thinking and creativity or lateral thinking, deep focus attention on passions and interests, displaying brutal honesty and authenticity as a person, and having the ability to use heightened sensory perceptions and to see the world in a different way and be able to process information differently to neurotypical people. When I relate to these attributes, normally I'm very good at lateral thinking and creativity, like thinking outside the box to solve problems, and which is based on logical thinking and following a natural order of things, of how they need to be done, as well as finding ways that they can be more efficient, which I think is a big bonus. Deep focus attention on passions and interests. I have done a newsletter talking about autism and special interests and how they bring enjoyment and interest to an autistic person's life, which can actually contribute towards them wanting to build a successful career starting a business, or basically there can be sources of joy that can be lifelong for that particular person. Also, passions and that they can evolve over time. As a teenager, I started to be really interested in cars, like classical luxury cars, and I used to follow Top Gear with Jeremy Clarkson in that quite religiously. And that passion for cars then led to me becoming a real big fan of the James Bond franchise, to the point where I would remember, the logical order of the films and which years that they were released in. And like with the cars, like I would like know like the top trumps of all the data of the engines and stuff like that. And there's many others, but that's just a pure example. And it's funny how you can it evolves from one thing and builds onto another. From being a very young child, I was always taught, to have my manners and show respect, from a very young age. Even before I was able to speak properly, because I was a bit of a late developer with my speech. But just being taught that discipline of, having my manners and showing respect and, and well, a lot of things that you could say that are based on like British values of family, community, and just looking out for one another. Being taught that from a young age, and I think it, has set me up for life. A lot of things that I was taught when I was at an autism specialist school from a young age, which I have discussed about in previous videos. Really those experiences have set me up for life, and it's built me into the person that I am today. And I have huge praise for that experience, and that because it has instilled a lot of those old school mannerisms, and that I feel today that has forgotten about to a certain degree. Heightened sensory perceptions. Well, autistic people are quite renowned in that for seeing the world differently and processing information using the five senses, which I have talked about in another newsletter, and so please refer back to that for more information. But using the five senses to process the world in a unique way is something that is an advantage for autistic people compared to neurotypical people, where they might take that for granted. However, on the flip side to that, there are many challenges that autistic people experience that causes them to question themselves, which can be seen as curses. Again, these are unique to each individual, and there is many of these challenges that are common for those that are on the autistic spectrum, like social interaction, sensory overload meltdowns, mental health struggles, and discrimination and lack of understanding. As I've mentioned before on many occasions, social interaction is one of the main cornerstone struggles for people that are on the autistic spectrum. No matter how much development an individual makes into making themselves more sociable, there always will be limitations on how much that they can endure in social situations. Like myself, as a child, and that lot, my biggest thing that I would hate is going to very busy social situations, or be in situations with a big crowd of people, and even though you might be there physically, but mentally you are not. And I've experienced this numerous times. And even though I have got better with managing busy situations and and I do make more effort and have to be more sociable with others. But there's always going to be a limitation of how much I can do. And sometimes I don't really have the over-empowering desire to be the life and soul of a party, or to be the talking point and that of when I walk into a room. Even though we would like that, because it gives autistic people more recognition, but we don't really have that desire to always be in other people's attentions, because we like our downtime, where we can process our thoughts and of what's gone on that day, and just and manage the sensory overloads and how that can come from facing anxious situations, and that builds on to like sensory overload, using the five senses again. When we're bombarded with things that are going into our minds through the five senses, and we just get and it gets too much, that's what can lead to having a meltdown. And us autistics, we have to find ways of being able to manage and overcome those moments, and that where it's just got too much, and we need to remove ourselves from those anxious situations and be able to bring ourselves back down to a calm manner, so we don't get overwhelmed with it in the future. Mental health struggles is another cornerstone of the autistic spectrum, especially anxiety. A lot of autistic behaviours that autistic people display usually are anxious driven, or they are influenced by anxiety and other mental health conditions. Even though they might not be treated as a separate diagnosis, but it does form part of their autistic makeup. My relationship with anxiety goes back from being a child and really overcoming, real bad anxiety and depression, and that where I used to question myself and that as an autistic person, and why can't I be the same as like my brother or my other or peers and that at school, where they were able to grasp things quickly, or they didn't have to think about it. It just came natural to them. When I was at secondary school, I used to get frustrated of why my brother, and he never hardly had to revise for his GCSEs. He was able to grasp it straight away. Like from the moment he was taught it, he just knew. He knew it, and he did his exams and he got like A stars, A's and B's in practically nearly every subject. Even though he was going out drinking and that with his rugby friends and that a couple of nights before. Where me, on the other hand, I had to revise God knows how many hours for each topic, and I was lucky if I was able to get a D or a C. Maybe not even that. So you can understand that comparing yourself to your sibling or peers at school, how that just adds more and more pressure onto the autistic person, and it just doesn't benefit us. It just adds to the overwhelming pressure and insecurities that we put on ourselves, and we have to remove that pressure and those insecurities so we can feel more at peace with ourselves and focus on what we can control, not on the things we can't control and live our best life as much as possible, and have goals and dreams and that can propel us to the life where we want to go and the achievements we want to make. The tips that I give to autistic people to develop a better understanding of their autism, change the limiting beliefs they have for it, and nurture with what you've got, and so you can live your best life possible, here as follows. Number 1, create a journal and identify what are your strengths and weaknesses. By identifying what your strengths and weaknesses are, you can praise yourself for the things that you are great at and keep nurturing it as much as possible, whilst at the same time it is important to work out what your weaknesses are so you can identify ways to overcome them, despite how challenging they can be, and even if you're lacking confidence in it. But it's about building a balance between work with what's great about your autism and the things that you might not like about your autism, and just work with what you got and become the best version of yourself, because that is all you can do. And wherever you are in life at this moment in time is temporary. Nothing is permanent unless you make it permanent. You do not have to seek permission from me, your parents, or anyone else in this world to say that you can or you cannot change who you are as a human being, or develop yourself and act to become a better version of yourself. Whatever your circumstances are, you can change things for the better. As a person who always used to question themselves, and it just kept adding unwanted stress and pressure about who I was as a person, I could not just sit back and allow my circumstances to dictate where I was going in the future. One of the biggest challenges for me was embracing the path that I wanted to take with my work. Initially, with my accountancy career, and also what I'm doing now, because in some ways it goes against the grain of what a lot of males in my family and that were doing, like doing mechanical, electrical, and many other stuff. And a lot of the time, most of my family initially maybe weren't showing me as much support as I would like, but that never stopped me from wanting to do what I wanted to do. At 20 years old, despite suffering with severe anxiety, I made the decision to go to college, and then that progressed on to university to do business studies, because I wanted to learn. I made the conscious decision I wanted to go. Yes, when I look back now, I most probably think I could maybe have thought differently, but I did what I thought was best at the time. And as long as you make decisions that's based on genuine intentions and you take the proactive steps and action to get to where you want to go, then that's all that matters. Because despite maybe thinking now that I might have maybe done things differently, but it's the journey that I had during my 20s that has helped me develop into the person that I am today. So whatever decision that you are wanting to make and you question it, take it with both hands and see where it goes. Because you never know what great things can happen for you just by taking that small action and taking those small steps every single day. Because you never know where it'll take you. And hopefully it'll lead to great things. Also, accept that your autism, you will have greats and flaws about you. And you just have to make peace with that. And that whatever mistakes you've made in the past, and try your best and not to compare your journey with someone else's. And I know that in the age of social media, it's very easy to compare your journey with someone else's. And believe you me, I've done it myself, and I still have little moments like that even to this day. Why have I not progressed further than they have? And I should have maybe done a lot more in my 20s. You can't change what you've done in the past and that. You just focus on the here and now, and hopefully it propels you forward in the future to where you want to go. And everyone has their own timeline. Just because it's took you 10 years longer than that other person to make success, doesn't necessarily mean you are not successful. You can be a success in your own light. And that's how you got to look at things. Determine what your own success looks like and strive towards it. Other people will have different perceptions of what success looks to them. Like, what success is to me might be different to what it is to you. And we're entitled to have those different viewpoints. So live your best life as much as you can and do what works for you, not for others. Number 2, practice self-compassion exercises. By practicing self-compassion exercises and challenging your negative limiting beliefs that you have about your autism is great ways of building a positive outlook of how you see your autism and learn to embrace it despite whatever challenges it brings. Autistic people, we are not broken people. We are not defects in society. We just see the world differently and process information in different ways. And even though autism does bring its own complexities to our lives and as family units, your uniqueness, our uniqueness, is what makes us the individuals we are. And don't let neurotypical people get you down and tell you that you can't achieve anything in life. Mindfulness techniques, and that can be very useful in this case, and to help us challenge the thoughts and perceptions that we have for certain things and change them from being negative into positive ones. When it comes to using mindfulness, it's about grounding and disciplining yourself to embrace the present moment of where you are and focus on what's around you, and to let go of the thoughts and feelings and that you have about what went on in the past or the worries that you have for the future. As well as using cognitive behavioural therapy, which is about challenging the thoughts that you have that does bring distress and anxiety to your life, and to carve out a viewpoint that brings peace to your life, and to bring acceptance and out of who you are as a person, and basically to bring peace about where you want to go in the future. And even though I've questioned my autism many times, and that from being a child, over the years, especially getting into adulthood, I've come to accept my autism, and I've never let anyone tell me that I can't achieve anything. I've always said that autistic people can achieve anything if they put their mind, soul, heart, and the hard work ethic into it to make it possible, to make it a reality. I was sceptical to begin with about mindfulness and would it really work, but you just got to have an open mindset and see what, and try it and see if it works for you. Because it's all right you questioning if can it work or can't it work, but it can't be it cannot be any worse than what your current situation is, especially if you are suffering with severe anxiety and depression. You can't get any worse in your life at that point. So try anything that might help you get yourself out of that situation that you're in, and to somewhere where there's more harmony and more peace in life, and you're more clearer of where you want to be. As a society, we are so focused on just prescribing people antidepressants and let them get on with it. We're letting people down by just embracing that route. We should be, because even though antidepressants might help deal with the physical symptoms that you have that's going through your body when you have high anxiety, but it doesn't address the core problems, the core issues of what's bringing that anxiety, and it's keeping you trapped in that vicious cycle. And mindfulness, along with cognitive behavioural therapy, and that can help you get yourself out of that vicious cycle and hopefully get you to a place where you feel more better in yourself. I've done this and I feel a lot better with managing my anxiety, and I still get moments of anxiety, so don't thinking that it's just you're gonna get rid of it in its entirety. You're not. It's always going to be part of an autistic person's life. It's just learning how to manage it better, and to not let it stop you from living a life in general, whatever that looks like for you. So grab it by both horns and try these methods along with many others, and I've discussed these in many other videos and newsletters that I've done, and see where it takes you, and if you have any other recommendations or other tips that people might find benefit from, please share these in the comment sections, and so other people can read them. I can maybe read them, and it might bring a different perspective to the situation. Some people might recommend something and they might think, God, I never thought of that. And it's like adding different methods to your toolbox, so to speak, of I've got anxiety. What can I do to get to ground myself and not let it acerbate further, and I'm just putting myself in a worse situation that I don't want to be in again. So take those proactive steps and see, and you'll see a massive difference in a short space of time. You just got to have an open mindset to it, as well as having the determination to want to change for the better. Because despite whatever I say to you in these videos or whatever I write on in my newsletters on Substack, I can't change your life for you. I can give you advice and I can share you my experiences, but I can't make turn your life for the better. You have to take those steps and those decisions for yourself. So what are you waiting for? A new version of yourself, the life that you want to lead, is on the other side of fear. So go conquer it and see where it takes you, and hopefully to a better place than where you are currently. To conclude to all of this, autistic people do possess valuable abilities and unique perceptions that can make our world a better place. And despite the day-to-day challenges that autism can bring to those on the autistic spectrum, they are some of the most loveliest, politest and kindest people you'll ever come across in the world. Autistic people do have certain attributes like lateral thinking, authenticity, deep focus and many others that can be seen as gifts and brings positivity to an autistic person's life. Whereas attributes like social interactions, sensory overloads, mental health struggles and many others brings extra challenges to autistic people and can be seen as curses. Despite the misjustices that autistic people face, which I have witnessed on many occasions, I do truly believe that autistic people can achieve anything in life and set out to prove neurotypical people wrong in the limiting expectations they have for people on the autistic spectrum. By using a journal and practicing self-compassion exercises as well as mindful techniques, you can identify what are your strengths and weaknesses and work out ways on nurturing and improving them to become the best version of yourself in terms of personal development. Also, you need to learn to celebrate the small wins you make along the way as part of your life journey, because no one else in this world can truly knows your story other than yourself. Hold yourself accountable as well for the life you want to build, the person you want to become in the future, and never let your autistic glow fade. As always, thank you.